We just got yet another update on the Cyberpunk 2077 situation, and this time it actually comes from a bit of a leak. The original source here is PlayStation Game Size on Twitter, where he posted this new cover art for Cyberpunk and actually shares some details on what's going on here. PlayStation Game Size posts all kinds of database updates on the PlayStation side, the vast majority of this being game updates, but also sometimes when things get added to the database, and this is the exciting part, as what is going on here seemingly is Cyberpunk 2077 has been uploaded to the PlayStation database for the first time, specifically for the PlayStation 5. This isn't an update to the PlayStation 4 version, this is something totally new. And with this upload, with this entry, that's where this new cover art is coming from. Seemingly, this will be the cover art of the next-gen version of Cyberpunk. Technically right now, as you're playing Cyberpunk 2077 on a PS5, you're really just playing the PS4 version using backwards compatibility. This is a genuine and more advanced PS5 version, or at least that's what it likely is. So what this all means, and some of the other things that are being shared around this leak, like a release date, I want to get into. But unfortunately, January is literally the worst time of year for YouTubers and ad revenue, aka ad revenue plummets. But thankfully, we have some help with that, and that's today's video sponsor with Friends and Dragons, a completely free-to-play strategy-based mobile RPG, and that strategy part is important here, as Friends and Dragons is unlike any other mobile game I've played thus far. It has some of the familiars, like a wide range of heroes to unlock and collect, but as you take those heroes into action, their unique abilities really come into play, as this game does have a heavy puzzle component to it. You can only move one hero per turn, and your placement and strategy as you're facing the enemy is vital here. And there's even some pretty terrifying bosses and unique mechanics with some of the enemies you'll face. It'll keep you thinking and evolving. But there's also a huge social aspect with co-op play, and you can join guilds, unlocking new features, and in general, more intense and interesting battles. And if you're looking for a guild, you could even just join my guild with Juice, very originally named, I know. With that said, you can download Friends and Dragons from my links or scan the QR code on screen now and get a special bonus of 1 free summon, daily energy potions, and gold for free, and an exclusive offer via my link only, so make sure you act now. So looking back at Cyberpunk, in the next 2 months, Cyberpunk 2077 is getting its biggest update yet, patch 1.5 and the next-gen version, which are technically two separate things, but being released at exactly the same time. And there'll probably be a few of those free DLCs sprinkled on top also. As of right now, we don't have an exact release date on this yet, but CDPR did say in the past that it'll be coming out in Q1, so at some point before the end of March. AKA, if you're watching this video when it goes live, we have about 2 months for this to release. So what does Cyberpunk 2077 being uploaded to the PlayStation 5 database actually say? Under his original post, the author mentions how he thinks it means it's coming mid-February to early March. A lot of people have actually been misreporting this. I've seen like a ton of people saying this is all from data mines, and he data mined something that indicated late February to early March. That's not the case. I actually messaged him. I know, crazy journalism, it's possible. And he basically said how this is a prediction by him. Obviously, he follows this PlayStation database pretty often, and it seems like Cyberpunk was uploaded at some point in the past 10 days. Seemingly, that was the last time he checked. And in his experience, when games are added to this database, they typically release only a few weeks after. So that's where he comes up with the mid-February to early March. And on the other side of the fence, the PC build has also been getting updated on Steam. We saw it get updated one time earlier in January, but yet again just 5 days ago. So clearly there's activity going on. Things are getting updated, Cyberpunk's getting uploaded to the PS5, progress is being made behind the scenes. So now when in the next 2 months this is actually dropping is just pure speculation. Whether or not that's next week, 2 weeks away, 3 weeks away, we don't really know. But what this does seem to indicate, and what seems to be the big takeaway here, is things are probably not going to be delayed again, at least the next-gen version in patch 1.5. If they're uploading and testing this version in multiple places, things hopefully are on track, or at least that seems to be the indication. And actually on the testing front, at the very least, we've known they've been testing patch 1.5 and the next-gen version for a while. Back on November 30th, CDPR talked about the next-gen update during their earnings call and said, "With Cyberpunk, we're currently at the testing stage. We have to be sure that what we're releasing is in very good shape. This requires substantial effort since the next-gen version includes graphical updates, includes graphical upgrades that exploit the potential of the new console, along with a set of system-level improvements I'm talking about systems which are general. It's not a revolution, but still, they interact with other systems, so we have to be sure there's no regression whatsoever. This is mainly why we require some extra time for testing. And later in that call to expand with, in terms of the status of Cyberpunk development, it's in the testing phase. We're testing the game, checking whether everything is fine. As I said, there are improvements and changes to general systems which interact with many other systems. So we have to thoroughly test the game to be sure, more than ever, that what we're releasing is well polished. So it seems like CDPR is trying very hard to not make the same mistake here. They don't want to release yet another buggy product, and it seemingly is being treated as a relaunch of the game of sorts. We're going to have a totally new cover art. They are testing this quite extensively to make sure the improvements and changes they've made actually work on day one. The cover art also seems to at least somewhat go against that leaked Samurai Edition being the naming of the relaunch version, because it doesn't actually say that anywhere, which maybe I'm reading too deeply into this, but I doubt the Samurai Edition. But there also is that question of, okay, well, what is this next-gen version, the patch 1.5, actually going to bring? As we just heard, they do describe changes to general systems which interact with many other systems, which is super vague and honestly could refer to almost anything fundamentally, but it is interesting to consider. Will we finally see some updates to things like police AI or even police chases get added, or is that just completely outside the scope of this patch? This is yet another topic CDPR has touched on in the past, but quite a while ago now, where they mentioned the initial patches need to focus on bugs and fixing both stability and performance, but continuing with, those were the most important aspects in our opinion. We subsequently shifted more and more towards improving things. I don't want to promise anything, of course, but in the future, the course of action will be in the direction of improving things, enhancing the quality further. So this quote's pretty old now, mentioned all the way back in June of 2021. But after that, we only actually got one major update, that with patch 1.3, that did see some improvements, but still relatively small scale, mostly a bug fixing patch, and the two other updates, patch 1.23 and patch 1.31, were really hot fixes more than anything else, making minor changes to the game overall. Patch 1.31 in particular was largely just fixing the bugs added by patch 1.3. So hopefully some of these improvements described could be what is most apparent with patch 1.5, although how deep they go is completely unknown. On the speculation side, you have people predicting, again, full-on police chases, to even further and deeper reworks or overhauls with the game, to some other people saying, no, it's not going to be any of that, and it's really just going to be more bug fixes. And honestly, going forward, there really are just so many unknowns right now with Cyberpunk. When the next-gen update in patch 1.5 are actually dropping, will we get notice on this, or is it just going to be like the other patches where they just drop a preview that's a day or two before the patch actually drops? So we have a full week, 2 weeks notice on this big relaunch of sorts. Further, one of the expansions coming, CDPR has been moving more and more employees onto these expansions, and the CEO even did say a few months ago, we currently employ over 1,200 people. There are approximately 660 developers in CD Projekt Red Studios, less than a third of them work on updates and the next-gen version of Cyberpunk 2077. Every month, more and more people are working on the first addition to Cyberpunk, while the rest are working on Gwent and other projects. Seemingly the manpower shift has been going on for this past year. So could we see the first expansion before the end of 2022? Will you even find out news around that relatively soon with this relaunch of sorts? And then there's even multiplayer. In the last earnings call, CDPR said multiplayer is coming to both franchises gradually at some point. Perhaps you could see or hear more about that with Cyberpunk after patch 1.5. Either way, it's definitely a very interesting moment for this game. We could be hearing a lot more very shortly. When these databases getting updated and cover art being posted is definitely a good sign of that. It would be nice for CDPR to give us some notice on one hand, because I would love to have a heads up when the big new update or relaunch of the game is dropping, but I imagine it'll be a good point for a lot of people to jump back in, or perhaps even just jump in for the first time, which is exciting. With that said, if you are looking for more Cyberpunk, tomorrow I'm going to be looking at the top 10 mods from 2021 for the game. There's some pretty special ones out there, and I bet some mods that you missed, so if you want to get subscribed, I will have that up tomorrow. Otherwise, thanks again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.